back to episode 4 of Behind the Culture with head coach Jim Flannery. Coach, one thing I don't think anybody knows is where sort of this idea came from. And for me, I'll give a little credit to former assistant coach Carrie Moore. It's built on when I first got here 13 years ago. She had something called Tuesdays with the Blue Jays, which was the team, coaches, players trying to do something that at the time it was not a blog. It was them writing a letter and us posting it on the website. And that's evolved, obviously, into this. There have been years that we've done it and years that we haven't, but that's where the idea came from for me to start this weekly opportunity to talk with yourself. And also, I'll give credit to Caleb Christensen. He and I bounced the idea around a few weeks ago before we started this, just talking about his experience and what he had done at a previous institution. So that's the impetus for Behind the Culture with Jim Flannery.
I like that. Now, normally these things are inspired by younger people. So when you said Carrie Moore, she was probably in her late 20s when she started that. Caleb's in his 20s. We get to our age, it's harder to be more creative. You're more creative than I am, but younger people are just, they're way more savvy and way more into what's going to be appealing to the masses, especially the younger generation, although older people like podcasts too.
I think that your appeal comes from so many things, but one of them may be your dancing ability, Coach.
Yeah. I've taken a hit over the years. My flexibility has diminished, so I'm still pretty solid. But there was a day, Glenn.
All right, tonight we want to talk first. It's been a monumental week for the Blue Jays. A very wonderful performance against Connecticut. Didn't get the victory, but were able to compete with one of the best teams in the country and give them their most competitive game in the Big East Conference. But maybe more importantly, the pink game in drawing over 11,000 fans to the CHI Health Center. Just reflect on that particular performance, first on the court, and then what it meant to have that many fans show up. And there was an emotional response in the post-game presser. I know that people have seen that on social media, but it was authentic, and we blame Matt DeMarinis for bringing that question up.
Yeah, I always blame Matt if I can. I thought we performed pretty well. We went into the game without Keani Lockett, who sprained her ankle the day before at shoot-around. We thought at practice. And I thought before our shoot-around game day that she was going to be cleared, and she felt pretty good before she tried doing anything that morning. Tried to do some things, and it just didn't respond, so we had to play without her. And, really, if you look at the second quarter, I think we had 10 of our 18 turnovers. We just kind of came unraveled a little on offense. They got some easy baskets, pushed the game out to a point where we really had to kind of reel them in, and that's hard to do. But I thought we really fought in the second half. We did a lot of good things, and certainly the crowd was a big part of, I think, allowing us to kind of keep that belief. And so I think what you said about the pink out, just couldn't be more pleased with how that turned out. I mean, to go on the same day as the guys with their pink out, to follow them, play a 4:30 game after they played 12:30. I thought it really worked out to get 11,000. I think when we first started talking about it, our goal was to get the lower bowl mostly full. We did that and more. The awareness that we raised, both, I think just the day as a whole, not just the men's game, our game, the sales of jerseys, and we got a ton of good feedback on what a special crowd that was. It's the almost 3 times the greatest crowd we've ever had, which is fantastic. I think it's a reflection of where we're headed with women's sports. Hopefully that can be, something that we pull off again. So a lot of great things. We had our alumni weekend as well. We had a ton of recruits at the game. So I think there's a lot of momentum from that game.
The thing about that performance on the court and the crowd itself that impressed me the most on the court, you had a couple of opportunities to wilt, and that's something that I would say we didn't quite wilt against UCLA or Kansas State, but we didn't give our best performance. And while the second quarter may not have been what you wanted, I think the fight shown in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, the ability to continually come back and really perform well was impressive for me. And then for the crowd, the thing that's most impressive, I'm a bit of a pessimist or a realist. And for me, when I was told we were going to have the second game, that means they clear the arena completely. And then you're asking people to either come back or new fans to come in. And I thought at that point, 5,000, 6,000 max. To get over 11,000 fans to come back into the arena or new fans to come in, that may be what impresses me the most.
Yeah, I thought our people here at Creighton did a great job. Our administrators, I thought they put together a good plan. Our ticket office was fantastic. I think, they were giving us weekly updates on where we were for ticket sales and just a lot of momentum. And we just kind of fell into doing our alumni weekend that weekend because, Jalen Agnew had talked to so many of her former teammates and said, oh, yeah, I want to come to that game. I want to come to that game. And so we said, well, okay, if all the alums are going to come anyway, we might as well make it an alumni weekend. And then, of course, we had recruits. It was a Saturday afternoon. A lot of high schools don't play on Saturdays, so just to have that. But then the Creighton people showed out too, the Creighton fan base, and so real appreciative of that. And to your point, I feel like that's we were better against an elite team than we were earlier in the year against Kansas State and UCLA. So that's a positive. Now it was a home game, so I think there's a comfort level and a jolt you get from your crowd. But I do think our players have to look and say, okay, we're making some progress in terms of how we can compete against an elite team. So a lot of positives.
Let's move forward to the game. You just got back last night from Georgetown, and talk about the importance of performing at an elite level when you go to play the next game. After you had a game against Connecticut, sometimes there's a natural letdown, and you had to travel. You had a short week, etc. Everybody has a short week, but you had to travel to Washington, D.C., and man, the performance given by Molly Mogensen and Lauren Jensen, just to single out those two, but also Mallory Brake had a great game. Jamie Horan played well. I think that all across the board, the team really delivered what you wanted against Georgetown, a team that eliminated you last year from the Big East tournament.
Yeah, I think that helped that we had lost our last game to them because, to your point, you worry about the emotional component of following that game after UConn and the high of being in that environment. And, Georgetown's a team that was picked, I think, tied for fourth in our league, so they have the talent. Kelsey Ransom's an all-conference player. She leads the league in scoring. So, and they'd been close in some games. But, yeah, we got off to a good start. Offensively, it was one of our better games of the year. I think at one time I looked at the stat sheet early in the third quarter, and we were 22 of 32 from the field. So, we moved the ball, we shot it well, and then we kind of did what we have done a lot. We let down just a little bit there, late third, early fourth quarter, made it a little bit closer than we wanted it to. Hit a couple baskets there at the end to push it back to 14, but yeah, still a really good road win. I mean, we're 6-0 on the road in the Big East, which is a tribute to the the talent of our team, but also the maturity and the experience that we have. And like you said, Molly really is playing with a lot of confidence lately. I think that her emergence as not that she hasn't done this in the past, but just the consistency she's shown as a scorer the last 5 games really makes us, I think, a more dangerous team.
Now, also, last night, obviously, there was an awful incident in the Washington, D.C. area. It wasn't at the airport that you were scheduled to fly out of, but how did you guys find out, and what impact, if any, did it have on the travel home?
Well, it really didn't have any impact on the travel home, but, yeah, our bus driver, Dave, who we have every time we go to D.C., who's terrific. He carries the men, too, and he's got them, I think, going to Villanova this weekend. So he, when I got on the bus, he was talking about it, and I everybody's like, when, and, of course, Jalen at her age, she's almost always on her phone.
Right.
And she's like, the plane is from Wichita and Jalen's from Wichita. And then, so you're just piecing together the information the way you do nowadays, which is people on their phone and various news sources, but primarily from Dave, our bus driver. And, we were supposed to have food delivered to the bus. So we had that. The chaos of that wasn't, they had gone somewhere else. So we didn't have our post-game food. So, Jenny was scrambling, trying to figure out what we were going to have to eat. But obviously that's not even secondary compared to what happened. So really, really tragic, and our hearts and our thoughts and prayers are with the people affected by that.
I know back here in Omaha, now typically I travel. My daughter had a minor medical issue that I stayed home for, but just hearing in the arena what was going on, and countless people were asking me, did the team get home? Is the team okay? And quickly I was alerted by Patrick Davis that you guys were fine, that it didn't impact you directly, but it's certainly something that causes concern, and as you mentioned, hearts, thoughts, prayers going to the people that are impacted. And for Jalen specifically, being from Wichita, it's possible that she knew someone either on that plane or was connected directly to someone. So.
Yeah, and then you wake up this morning and you've got the news on and you're hearing about it, and so it's. Yeah, I had several people text me too, either last night or this morning, and said, "Hey, did you get back?" And it's tragic for sure.
Let's move forward from that question, and let's talk about last time we teased a little bit, questioning why you continue to have the roster the size that it is. And for those who don't know, this year this roster is 11 players. Last year it was 11 players, but only 10 could play. We had one career-ending injury for Lexi Unruh, and so what's the thought process in having 10, 11? I think the largest roster in my 13 years was 12 or 13. And that particular year, we had a streak of 20 years of not having a transfer broken by 2 players transferring out. And I heard you say, I'll never have a roster that big again.
Well, 12's fine. I mean, I think with when I first started as a head coach, we had, I think, 16, which is a lot. The reality is with club basketball being as developed and high profile and competitive as it is, kids are used to playing a lot, and a lot of them want success right away. They're live in a culture where it's a little bit harder to defer that opportunity to play. So I just think, coupled with the portal and the number of the ease with which kids can transfer, I just think it makes it really hard to have 14 or 15 on your roster. We could have up to 15, and you talk to some coaches and they'll tell you hey, we're going to carry 14 or 15, and we know we're going to lose 4 or 5 transfers every year. We're going to have to bring in, and that's fine. But I'd rather have the continuity of still being a developmental program. If we need to add a transfer or two, we'll have to do that, or we will do that. And next year we will, just because we have 7 fifth-year seniors this year, and we weren't sure everybody was going to return, and then we didn't necessarily think that we would add fifth-year seniors in Brooke and Sydney. Had we gone out and gotten a couple third or fourth-year transfers who had a couple years of eligibility left, and we were sitting on 11 going into next year, we'd be less likely. But right now we're sitting on 9 going into next year, so we will add a couple transfers. But I just think it's easier to have cohesion. It's easier to see, for players to see a pathway to play. You take someone like Elizabeth Gentry, who we're really high on. It's just, she's a freshman, and we have 4 fifth-year seniors kind of playing in the post ahead of her, and so I think to sit 1 year is fine for a lot of kids, but to have to sit multiple years when, the logic is that, hey, I can go and play right away. I don't have to sit a year. there's plenty of situations that would that would potentially be better for me from a playing standpoint. So I think we'll hover between 11 and 12. I think it's hard to get. You mentioned we were at 10 last year, but we didn't know going into last season that Lexi was going to be out for the whole year. So we really went in thinking we were going to have 11. And I think in cases where you're going to be younger, 12's fine. But I do think it's going to be, for us to get beyond 12, it'd have to be maybe a special case scenario. But because I just think it's hard for kids to view sitting for multiple years to start their career.
Now, you touched on this in the post-game show at Connecticut, and it's not my intent to tear you up again, but we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge just the performance that Brooke had against Connecticut and what it may have meant to her as well as to the players and the coaches to see her perform like that, and what that entire day meant to her as well as to yourself. What can you say about what she was able to do against one of the elite teams in the country?
Yeah, she had a magical day on an individual level. I think going into that game that it's probably going to be harder for her to have composure and be together. At least you think that, because she lost her father in October and we're playing our pink out, and you have all these conversations regarding cancer leading into the game, and so it's hard to think it's not on the top or the forefront of her mind, and to go out and get the opportunity to play at the level that she did is pretty special. And she had her mom and her brother there, and her brother's a high school basketball player, so her mom hasn't been able to get to as many games because he's a junior in high school playing high school basketball, so he's she's there for him a lot. So to have her whole family there on a Saturday and play at that level was great. And Kiani's injury probably played a little bit into how much of an opportunity she had, and she settled in, did a great job. So you're really happy for her that she had that moment, because she'll be able to hold on to that, and her mom will. And I got a really nice email from her grandfather after the game. So just so many good things that came out of that, and particularly happy for Brooke because, to be in a new place and have that happen, even if she knew the likelihood of him being in a position where he would be fighting for his life this fall, just really kind of a magical day for her.
One final question today. We do try to keep these podcasts to about 20 minutes, and we've done a relatively good job through the first three. Coming up on Sunday, an opportunity again to be both in the national spotlight, but for a wonderful cause moving forward. It's called the Female Forward for National Girls and Women's in Sports Day, playing Providence. When were you first approached about being the team to host this event, and what are your thoughts on it overall?
Yeah, well, the league has done it, I think, at least 2 years and maybe 3. I know we've had 2 or 3 pops at this, and so I think Jackie Campbell, who is our sports supervisor from the Big East, does a great job. She talked to us about it at our conference meetings in May, and kind of had conversations throughout the summer about that. Kind of, the UConn game on the 25th being on Fox, and then hey, that following weekend, let's have you and Providence at home. So. Again, I spoke earlier to just the momentum of women's sports, and just, but now is the time to jump on that. You can't make assumptions that, hey, it's just things are magically going to continue on the path that they are. But we'll have an all-female crew officiating. We'll have an all-female talent crew on the television, and a female producer, and unfortunately, we'll have one male head coach. Jackie said that was fine, obviously, or they wouldn't have chosen Creighton. But we've got some clinics going on before that a lot of our other sport teams are going to help administer, and that'll be a great event. Late Sunday morning, so we'll get a lot of young girls on campus and have our softball and soccer and volleyball teams work with them, and then I think our game is either a sellout or close to a sellout. So it's another neat day, and hopefully our players they understand the impact that they can have on people in the community. I think that's been one of the probably undervalued parts of this fifth-year class is just the impact they've had on kids in Omaha, and particularly young girls. Just the the number of parents who talk about them, or just to see them wear jerseys or T-shirts with Lauren or Molly or Morgan on them. I mean, is really special. So I look forward to the pregame stuff and the game itself, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to reach out and give back to young girls in Omaha.
I want to tease a couple of things that we're going to address as we move forward. Within the next couple of episodes, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to name the Mount Rushmore of Creighton women's basketball players, and then I'll break it down even further in your era. But those are things that we're going to discuss. And I also want to get a little bit deeper into how you became a coach, because you've said before you fell into coaching. I mean, that's maybe true to a degree, but you certainly didn't fall into a 25, 35-year career here at Creighton. There has to be more to that. And I know that if given the opportunity, Flan will expound for minutes to hours. We're not going to let him quite go hours, but I want to get a little bit deeper into what brought you into the coaching realm and what keeps you in the coaching realm. But for today, thank you for joining us. This is Behind the Blue Jay Culture with head coach Jim Flannery.